Section 13 of Little Journeys to the Homes of English Authors. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Read by Jennifer Beckett Wood. Little Journeys to the Homes of English Authors by Elbert Hubbard. Section 13, Joseph Addison, Part 1. Thus am I doubly armed. My death and life, my bane and antidote are both before me. This in a moment brings me to an end, but this informs me I shall never die. The soul, secured in her existence, smiles at the drawn dagger and defies its point. The stars shall fade away, the sun himself grow dim with age, and nature sink in years. But thou shalt flourish in immortal youth, unhurt amid the war of elements, the wreck of matter, and the crash of worlds. Cato's Soliloquy. Men are not punished for their sins, but by them. Expression is necessary to life. The spirit grows through exercise of its faculties, just as a muscle grows strong through use. Life is expression, and repression is stagnation, death. Yet there is right expression and wrong expression. If a man allows his life to run riot, and only the animal side of his nature is allowed to express itself, he is repressing his highest and best, and therefore those qualities, not used, atrophy and die. Sensuality, gluttony, and the life of license repress the life of the spirit, and the soul never blossoms. And this is what it is to lose one's soul. All adown the centuries thinking men have noted these truths, and again we find individuals forsaking in horror the life of the senses, and devoting themselves to the life of the spirit. The question of expression through the spirit or through the senses, through the soul or the body, has been the pivotal point of all philosophies and the inspiration of all religions. Asceticism in our day finds an interesting manifestation in the Trappists, who live on a mountain, nearly inaccessible, and deprive themselves of almost every vestige of bodily comfort, going without food for days, wearing uncomfortable garments, suffering severe cold. So here we find the extreme instance of men repressing the faculties of the body in order that the spirit may find ample time and opportunity for exercise. Between this extreme repression and the license of the sensualist lies the truth. But just where is the great question, and the desire of one person who thinks he has discovered the norm to compel all other men to stop there has led to war and strife untold. All law centres around this point. What shall men be allowed to do? And so we find statutes to punish strolling play actors, players on fiddles, disturbers of the public conscience, persons who dance wantonly, blasphemers, etc. In England there were in the year 1800 67 offences punishable with death. What expression is right and what is not is largely a matter of opinion. Instrumental music has been to some a rock of offence, exciting the spirit through the sense of hearing to wrong thoughts through the lascivious pleasing of a lute. Others think dancing wicked, while a few allow square dances but condemn the waltz. Some sects allow pipe organ music, but draw the line at the violin, while others still employ a whole orchestra in their religious service. Some there may be who regard pictures as implements of idolatry, while the hook-and-eye Baptists look upon buttons as immoral. Strange evolutions are often witnessed within the life of one individual as to what is right and what wrong. For instance, Leo Tolstoy, that great and good man, once a worldling, has now turned ascetic a not unusual evolution in the lives of the saints. Not caring for harmony as expressed in colour, form, and sounds, Tolstoy is now quite willing to deprive all others of these things which minister to their well-being. There is in most souls a hunger for beauty, just as there is a physical hunger. Beauty speaks to their spirits through the senses. But Tolstoy would have his house barren to the verge of hardship, and he advocates that all other houses should be likewise. My veneration for Count Tolstoy is profound, but I mention him here simply to show the danger that lies in allowing any man, even one of the best, to dictate to us what is right. Most of the frightful cruelties inflicted on mankind during the past have arisen out of a difference of opinion arising through a difference in temperament. The question is as live today as it was 2,000 years ago. What expression is best? That is, what shall we do to be saved? And concrete absurdity consists in saying we must all do the same thing. Whether the race will ever grow to a point where men will be willing to leave the matter of life expression to the individual is a question. Most men are anxious to do what is best for themselves and least harmful for others. The average man now has intelligence enough. Utopia is not far off if the self-appointed folk who govern us for a consideration would only be willing to do unto others as they would be done by, and cease coveting things that belong to other people. War among nations and strife among individuals is a result of the covetous spirit to possess either power or things, or both. A little more patience, a little more charity for all, a little more devotion, a little more love, with less bowing down to the past, a brave looking forward to the future, with more confidence in ourselves and more faith in our fellows, and the race will be ripe for a great burst of light and life. Macaulay has said that the Puritan did not condemn bear-baiting because it gave pain to the bear, but because it gave pleasure to the spectator. The Puritan regarded beauty as a pitfall and a snare. That which gave pleasure was a sin. He found his gratification in doing without things. Puritanism was a violent oscillation of the pendulum of life to the other side. From the vanity, pretence, affectation, and sensualism of a church and state bitten by corruption, we find the recoil in Puritanism. Asceticism to the verge of hardship, frankness bordering on rudeness, and a stolidity that was impolite, or soft luxurious hypocrisy in a moth-eaten society, which shall it be? And Joseph Addison comes upon the scene, and by the sincerity, graciousness, and gentle excellence of his life and work says, neither. The little village of Wiltshire is noted as the birthplace of Addison, who was the son of a clergyman, afterward the Dean of Lichfield. An erstwhile resident of Lichfield, Samuel Johnson by name, once said of Joseph Addison, "Whoever wishes to attain an English style, familiar but not coarse, elegant but not ostentatious, must give his days and nights to the volumes of Addison." For elegance, simplicity, insight, and a wit that is sharp but which never wounds, Addison has no rival, although more than 200 years have come and gone since he ceased to write. Addison was a gentleman, the best example of a perfect gentleman that the history of English literature affords. And in letters it is much easier to find a genius than a gentleman. The field today is not at all overworked, and those who wish to cultivate the art of being gentlemen will find no fearsome competition. In fact, the chief reason for not engaging in this line is the discomfort of isolation and the lack of comradeship one is sure to suffer. To be gentle, generous, kind, to win by few words, and to disarm criticism and prejudice through the potency of a gracious presence, is a fine art. Books on etiquette will not serve the end, nor studious attempts to smile at the proper time, nor zealous efforts to avoid jostling the whims of those we meet, for to attempt to please is often to antagonize. Sympathy, knowledge, and poise seem the three ingredients most needed in forming the gentle man. I place these elements according to their value. No man is great who does not possess sympathy plus, and the greatness of men can be safely gauged by their sympathies. Sympathy and imagination are twin sisters. Your heart must go out to all men, the high, the low, the rich, the poor, the learned, the unlearned, the good, the bad, the wise, the foolish. You must be one with them all, else you can never comprehend them. Sympathy. It is the touchstone to every secret, the key to all knowledge, the open sesame of all hearts. Put yourself in the other man's place, and then you will know why he thinks certain thoughts and does certain deeds. Put yourself in his place, and your blame will dissolve itself into pity, and your tears will wipe out the record of his misdeeds. The saviours of the world have simply been men with wondrous sympathy. But knowledge must go with sympathy, else the emotions will become maudlin, and pity may be wasted on a poodle instead of a child, on a field mouse instead of a human soul. Knowledge in use is wisdom, and wisdom implies a sense of values. You know a big thing from a little one, a valuable fact from a trivial one. Tragedy and comedy are simply questions of value. A little misfit in life makes us laugh. A great one is tragedy and cause for grief. Poise is the strength of body and strength of mind to control your sympathy and your knowledge. Unless you control your emotions, they run over, and you stand in the slop. Sympathy must not run riot, or it is valueless, and tokens weakness instead of strength. In every hospital for nervous disorders are to be found many instances of this loss of control. The individual has sympathy, but not poise, and therefore his life is worthless to himself and to the world. He symbols inefficiency, not helpfulness. Poise reveals itself more in voice than in words, more in thought than in action, more in atmosphere than in conscious life. It is a spiritual quality, and is felt more than it is seen. It is not a matter of size, nor bodily attitude, nor attire, nor personal comeliness. It is a state of inward being, and of knowing your cause is just. And so you see it is a great and profound subject after all, great in its ramifications, limitless in extent, implying the entire science of right living. I once met a man who was deformed in body and little more than a dwarf, but who had such spiritual gravity, such poise, that to enter a room where he was to feel his presence and acknowledge his superiority. To allow sympathy to waste itself on unworthy subjects is to deplete one's life forces. To conserve is the part of wisdom. No great orator ever exerts himself to his fullest, and reserve is a necessary element in all good literature, as well as in everything else. Poise, being the control of your sympathy and knowledge, implies the possession of these attributes, for without sympathy and knowledge you have nothing to control but your physical body. To practice poise as a mere gymnastic exercise, or a study in etiquette, is to be self-conscious, stiff, preposterous, and ridiculous. Those who cut such fantastic tricks before high heaven as make angels weep are men void of sympathy and knowledge, trying to cultivate poise. Their science is a mere matter of what to do with arms and legs. Poise is a question of spirit controlling flesh, heart controlling attitude. And so in the cultivation of poise it is well to begin quite a ways back. Let perfect love cast out fear. Get rid of all secrets. Have nothing in your heart to conceal. Be gentle, generous, kind. Do not bother to forgive your enemies. It is better to forget them, and cease conjuring them forth from your inner consciousness. The idea that you have enemies is egotism gone to seed. Get knowledge by coming close to nature, listening to her heartbeats, studying her ways. And let your heart go out to humanity by a desire to serve. That man is greatest who best serves his kind. Sympathy and knowledge are for use. You acquire that you may give out. You accumulate that you may bestow. And as God has given you the sublime blessings of sympathy and knowledge, there will come to you the wish to reveal your gratitude by giving them out again. For the wise man knows that we retain spiritual qualities only as we give them away. Let your light shine. To him that hath shall be given. The exercise of wisdom brings wisdom, and at the last the infinitesimal quantity of man's knowledge, compared with the infinite, and the meagreness of man's sympathy, when compared with the source from which ours is absorbed, will evolve an abnegation and a humility that will lend a perfect poise. The gentleman is a man with sympathy, knowledge, and poise, and as I sit here in this quiet corner, Joseph Addison seems to me to fit the requirements a little better than any other name I can recall. Born into a family where economy was a necessity, yet Addison had every advantage that good breeding and thorough tutorship could give. At Charterhouse School he won the affection of his teachers by his earnest wish to comply. The receptive spirit and the desire to please were his by inheritance. When 15 he went to Queen's College, Oxford, where within a year his beauty, good nature, and intelligence made his presence felt. In another year he was elected a scholar at Magdalen College, his recommendation being his skill in Latin versification. It was the hope and expectation of his parents that he should become a clergyman and follow in his father's footsteps. This also seems to have been the bent of the young man's mind. But the grace of his personality, his obliging disposition, with a sort of furtive ability to peer into a millstone as far as any, had attracted the attention of several statesmen. One of these, Charles Montague, afterward Lord Halifax, remarked, "I am a friend of the Church, but I propose to do it the injury of keeping Addison out of it." Montague discussed the matter with Lord Somers, and these two concluded that just a trifle more maturity of that gently ironical mind, a little more seasoning of the gracious personality, and the state would have in Joseph Addison a servant of untold value. Thus we see that England's policy of selecting and training men for the consular and diplomatic service is no new thing. It is a wonder that America has not ere this profited by the example. The tradition holds that we must at least have a scholar and a gentleman for the court of St. James, and several times we have been put to straits to find the man. The only way is to breed them, and then bring them up in the way they should go. But beyond the zealous desire of Montague and Lord Somers to educate good men for the diplomatic service, lurks the still more eager wish to secure able writers to plead and defend the party cause. With this phase of the question America is more familiar. The policy of rewarding able speakers and ready writers with offices ready-made or made to order has come to us ably backed by precedent untold. Addison set himself to literary tasks, but still regarded himself as a scholar. Leisure fitted his temperament. He was never in haste, even when he was in a hurry, and he carried with him the air of having all the time there was. Nothing is so ungraceful as haste. Addison always had time to listen, and we make friends, not by explaining things to other folks, but by allowing others to explain to us. The habit of attentive, sympathetic listening came to Addison early in life. From his 21st to his 27th year he lived a studious life. idle his father called it, writing essays, political pamphlets, and Latin verse. His political friends took care that some of the output was purchased, so that he was assured a comfortable living, but his success was not sufficient to inflate his cosmos with an undue amount of ego. One small book of criticism which he produced about this time was entitled Account of the English Poets. A significant feature of the work is that Shakespeare is not mentioned, even once, while Dryden is placed as the standard of excellence, just as in modern painters Ruskin takes Turner and lets him stand for 100, and all other artists grade down from this. Addison merely reflected the taste of his time. Shakespeare was not thought any more of 200 years ago than we think of him now, with this difference, that he is the author we now talk about and seldom read. But then they did not discuss him any more than we now go to see him played. An interesting character by the name of Jacob Tonson appears upon the scene as a friend of Addison in his early days. Tonson enjoyed the distinction of being the father of the modern publishing business, the first man to bring out the works of authors at his own risk and then sell the product to bookstores. I believe it is Mr. Le Gallienne who has been so unkind as to speak of Barabbas Tonson. Among Tonson's many good strokes was his act in buying the copyright of Paradise Lost from Symonds, the bookseller, who had purchased all rights in the manuscript from the bereaved widow on a payment of £8. Tonson appreciated good things in a literary way. He was on friendly terms with all the principal writers, and did much in bringing some shy writers to the front. Addison and Tonson laid great plans, few of which materialized, and some were carried out by other people, notably the compilation of an English dictionary. In 1699 we find Addison, in possession of a pension of £300 a year, crossing the Channel into France with the object to travel and qualify himself to serve His Majesty. End of section 13.